Oh, there we're officially recording. Boom.
All right. Hey, welcome to the Sunnybrook Family Ministry Podcast is what we're calling this, but it's also now on YouTube. And so I don't know what that means. If that's like my kids have told me, don't be a vlogger. So I know that's not what this is. Maybe it's a web show. Maybe it's something else, but
A web show.
a web show. If you are, into watching web shows on YouTube, then that's what this is. If you are more into like listening to things like podcasts while you're doing other things, that is where this will be also as well. But anyway, that's what we are. And so we kind of started this last week, talking about really how we can help our parents and volunteer leaders at Sunnybrook more effectively disciple the next generation of young people. And so we're going to have over hopefully the next months or so, some different staff people on here, whether it's all the way down in our early childhood ministry, up to student ministry, even college ministry, just talking about issues that are relevant to the ministries that we're working in, and as volunteers you might be serving in, and then as parents, the kids that you are raising up and leading as followers of Jesus Christ. So last week we started this, talked about what was it like the first 2 weeks we were having youth group online. And so we talked about some of the different things that we were learning as we were a couple weeks into this pandemic, and now we're a week further than that and learning a few other different things. But one of the thoughts that came to my mind over the last week or so was really, what would it be like to talk to some of our volunteers? What would it be like to talk to some of our parents about just how they're doing? And that's a loaded question. It seems like people ask us that, how are you doing? And we ask other people, and usually it's, well, pretty good. It seems like things are going okay. And but we really haven't really unpacked that a lot. And so what we want to do over the next few minutes is just talk together about how we're doing, just personally, what we're doing at home to pass the time with all the newfound time that has been given to us. What we're doing and how we're doing at work. And hopefully some of you out there could resonate with how we're doing with work and how we might be doing work in ministry differently than we did before. And then more kind of getting a little bit more personal at the end. And that is like how are we doing emotionally with what's going on? And so how are we processing this? So that's a little bit of the goal over the next few minutes. So we'll start right now. Morgan, you are right below me on my screen. So why don't you share for just a few minutes, what have you been doing? Like, what have you been doing the last, 3 weeks?
So for me, I am a person I like to have structure. So the first week, it was just like running around with your head cut off, and I felt like I was just swamped with things, and I did not have any structure, and that was making me feel pretty stressed. So I've turned it into trying to get as much of my work done as I can before 3 p.m. And so I get up. I have 2 kids that are in foster care here, and they're still going to daycare. So I walk them to daycare every morning to get out of the house. And we walk at 8, and then I get back. We have a meeting at 9, and then I usually have another meeting and another meeting. And then I try to get out and walk and call volunteers and people from our church. Then I have lunch, and then I try to read. Usually it turns into people calling me back that missed my call in the morning, and so I'm calling them back and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And then I go pick up the kids at 3, and we do school in the afternoon from 3 to 5-ish, and then we make dinner, have dinner, do family stuff, watch a What's in the Bible, and then go to sleep and then start all over again. So that's kind of what we're doing. That's kind of how our schedule's going. It's like, it sounds weird, but like working as much as possible in the morning and things I can't do with the kids are here, and then getting the kids here so I can give them my full attention, because feeling torn between the two is a little difficult if everything's happening at once. So that's some of the things that we're doing. Lots more Bible than we used to as far as at home goes. So that's been really fun.
Okay, so being a little bit more intentional with the time, I guess, that you have there.
Yep.
So like you jumped all the way in. It's like you gave us hour by hour exactly what it's like. You asked the question, Drew, what am I doing? Well, 9:30, taking a walk. 10 o'clock, call number 1. So you talked about the What's in the Bible thing. I know that's a resource that we have at the church Right Now Media. I know a lot of people are familiar with that. Do you want to share about that? Not
Yeah.
necessarily Right Now Media, I guess, in general, but that little series that you're doing. I know it's kind of aimed right at elementary school age kids. Do you want to share that with I know parents would be grateful to know about it.
So what's really cool about it is it's kind of a kiddie show. Like your preschool kid, your young elementary would be engaged in it because it's puppets, which is really old school. I know, but the content is like junior high, high school level.
Right.
I mean, and then there's humor in it that could even make you laugh. If you know the Bible as an adult, it would make you laugh. And if you don't know the Bible, you'd be like, what the heck? How do I not know this? And this puppet is teaching me this, so kind of a both and, but it provides some really great discussion questions, and it goes straight through the Bible. It's all free. It's called What's in the Bible with Buck Denver. And you basically go to Right Now Media, go into it, and let him talk to you on this show. And it's crazy how much you learn. I mean, the kids that are in my home, we've talked about like what the Pentateuch is. We've talked about the different genres of the Bible. We talked about why the Bible was written, how it was written, how it's all brought together. Who's the author? It's God speaking through human people. I mean, it just goes into detail of everything. The judges, right now we're in Kings, and we're talking through all the different kings of Israel, and they are sucked in. And I grew up on popcorn and M&Ms. So we just every night have made it a habit at 7 p.m. to stop whatever we're doing. Everybody gets pajamas on, and we go and we sit down in the living room, and everybody gets popcorn M&Ms and has to find a different spot on the floor. And
you click on that, and it's basically free to everyone in our church. So
yeah.
What's in the Bible? That's Phil Vischer, the VeggieTales guy. I think is the creator of those. So it's pretty cool. It's really,
if
really
you
cool.
watch it, there's a lady named Sunday School Lady. She's my favorite character. So
Okay.
every time you watch Sunday School Lady, you will know that if I watch her, I'm always laughing at Sunday School Lady.
She's a top character for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
100%.
All right, Justin, what have you guys been doing as maybe even at work, but also at home too?
Sure. I mean, I think what Morgan was hitting on a little bit, the clear line between work and home is not there anymore. And so when I have to do a recording or do something for church, a lot of times I'll come in here into the office, but most of the time I'm there at the house, and we don't really have a room like separated off where I can just be in isolation, and not hear or be, in which it's kind of weird, my kids shouldn't necessarily have to feel bad about doing normal life when we've chosen to do like homeschool there. And I'm the intruder in this sense, in this scenario where now all of a sudden dad's having to do work there in the dining room while they're doing school. And so that's just interesting, trying to find the new rhythm of what Ebert House looks like. And so yeah, the structure is really helpful, I think, for all of us, for sure, in this time of isolation. We have been playing a lot more board games, for sure. We're big Ticket to Ride fans. I don't know if you guys have played Ticket to Ride. Okay. There's a new version called Ships and Sails. So, Morgan, if you guys are looking for a new game, Ships and Sails, Ticket to Ride. And we do a few things that I think are helpful, enjoyable, at least intentional for us. So a really easy, free app out there is the Gospel Coalition people, Tim and Kathy Keller, created a catechism called the New City Catechism. And there's an app, and they're just like kid questions, and they have kid songs with them that just talk about who God is and what he's done in ways that little kids can easily memorize. And that's just something easy we can do in the mornings or in the evenings that have been just ways we've tried to increase their awareness of the Lord. And we've got an Easter/Lent Devo we've been going through. I think it's from the Good Book Company. I can't remember the title of it, but it's really cool. It's got like kids activities and coloring pages and a nightly Devo and then a book that comes with it in story form. And that's been kind of the Easter thing. We've been trying to build in what that would look like. Normally in this new version, today we kind of had the realization, oh, this is the day family would have been coming into town. And so everyone's had those moments, I'm sure, where you eat something or you do something that reminds you of another situation or your other friends or family that make you sad. And we've tried to come up with fun, creative ways. That's just trying to be on your toes and amidst the structure, amidst the newness. That's a little bit of what we've been doing. For me personally, Drew, I know you'll be interested. I've been refreshing my Greek. So I know everyone out there has been really interested in learning a new language over the
languages. Just learning a language. Yes, totally.
Yes. So I stole / Max Johnson gave me his flashcards from Greek with Kinney Bowles. He's the blessed Kinney Bowles, actually. So that's kind of Justin's little pet project during the COVID. My dad started drawing and painting again. I've heard of a lot of people doing
Mark Ebert painting.
I know. Janelle Armstrong. She's like knitting these legit masks. She just sent a picture. She had done like 20 or 40 of them, had given some to staff and took the rest to the hospital. And so everyone's got kind of their little side hustle / just fun project they're working on. Mine is Greek words.
I think whenever you feel like you're intruding on your kids and you find yourself getting frustrated, I think you should just mumble Greek under your breath and let them not, kind of like Lucy and Ricardo. You know how he goes into Spanish mode when Lucy's when your kids bother, just start mumbling Greek under your breath.
I've done a lot of landscaping, Drew. I don't know if you guys walked by my house and seen the butchering I've done to my yard, but
that butchering would be a good word to describe that, I think. So, and the other thing I'm trying to figure out is your dad, like Bob Ross, just going all Bob Ross on us. Happy trees. I mean, he's doctor by day, painter by night.
He used to do some like drawing, and he would make like designs for shirts for his medical classes. And he just was like, man, I've got a lot of time alone. He's still working at a hospital in Oklahoma City. And so he's self-isolating from like my mom and everybody. So he's, feeling alone, and kind of that's a bummer. And so he has a lot of time. And one of the ways he's filling that time is drawing. And so he's pretty good. He drew a picture of my niece.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. I am a terrible artist. So I got none of the artistic genes in the family. None.
Well, what you were talking about, just the whole idea of talking about some of the different losses that we've all experienced, right? So some of them can be very, tragic, like loss of life and different things like this that many people are experiencing. And then some of them can be, in the grand scheme of things, really kind of in that not big of a deal category, yet probably cause a sense of loss for us. I was listening to something the other day. This lady was talking about, Kara Powell's her name. She's a researcher at Fuller Youth Institute, and she was talking about what they're doing with their kids. And I've thought about doing this, but hasn't quite happened yet. But they just have this list that they put somewhere near where they eat dinner every night, as we're now eating every meal together. And just basically having two categories: one, losses, and then one, blessings that we're experiencing. And every day, like everyone in the family puts down a loss that they've experienced, and then in the other category, just a blessing that they've really received from God through this. And I thought that could be very, very helpful. I think as I'm talking to a lot of students, and even as parents, I just don't know that we quite know how to process what we're going through right now. And sometimes doing something like that, going up to a piece of paper and writing down, this is a loss, seems silly, seems like I shouldn't be making a big deal about this, but it hurts. I think sometimes that can be helpful for us.
That's good.
What have we been doing? We have been trying to pass the time as best we can, trying to figure out how to keep everyone home all day, and figuring out Morgan, you're talking about a rhythm. And I think the key is like, we have to have a new rhythm. It's not going to be the same. So we have to admit that right off the bat, but trying to figure out what this sort of new normal looks like, at least for the next several weeks and months. I don't know. We've kind of happened on something. I thought, we're all here at dinner. We need to have a little bit better discussion. So just the other night, we were talking about, this is pretty much early on into this whole new time that we're in, I guess you'd say. And I just said, hey guys, like, where do you think like God is involved in this? Like, at what point, like, is he just kind of letting this happen? Is he sending this on? Is just kind of throwing out some questions for thought. And we had a really good discussion. And one of the things that I've been guilty of, I don't know if I'm guilty of it. I know Kim says that I definitely do this all the time and I need to stop.
I trust Kim.
Yeah, well, it's probably true. Yep. So I always feel like, now we got to do this again. And she's like, no, stop trying to make it happen the next night. It's not going to work. It's like, okay, discussion time. And so I think one of the things that I've had to learn, it's been harder for me, especially as the kids have gotten a little bit older, teenagers and things, it's just not quite as, okay, now it's discussion time again. It just kind of has to happen. And I think if we're not intentional, it may not ever happen. But when it does happen, just accept it as an awesome gift and wait for it to happen again. But you don't necessarily have to force it. That's been the most difficult thing for me, I think, through some of this. I don't know. We watched a movie. I talked about this a little bit. We watched Case for Christ, a Christian movie. I think it's pretty good for if you put it in the Christian movie category. I know that many of them have been cheesy over the years, or however you want to put that, but had some really great discussion about that. And again, I had to fight off the urge of, okay, what's our movie night the next night?
What's the next Christian movie we can
Christian movie. That's our new tradition. And
Not Dead 1 and 2.
Oh yeah. And like, I take grief over this. Seriously. Like, sometimes I'll say things like, man, that was so much fun. And they're like, why did you have to just say that was so much fun? Because it makes it not fun now. And now we make it really not a good time. And so anyway, yeah. But it's been good trying to find, I guess, the new normal, the new flow of life for us, working through the school schedules and stuff.
I feel for parents of teenagers and junior high students and college students during this time, because with younger kids, you can build a structure and they just, they want your attention.
Yeah.
And junior high happens and kids are starting to cut parents off and out. They're starting to become more independent and autonomous and want to do my own thing. And now it's like I'm in a home with my parents all the time. And so for parents, it's like, to sit down and do some schooling with a 7-year-old in my home, it's like we're doing 20 minutes of reading, and then we're going to do 20 minutes of math, and then we're going to do 20 minutes of English, and we're just kind of rolling, and she's loving this personal attention from me, and and so does the little man that's in my house. But you have a teenager and they're like, I don't want your help, I don't want your input, but I'm also really ticked off because I can't figure this out by myself. Or I want to, I don't need you to ask me if I got my stuff done. I don't need you to tell me to get off of the video game. It's just different, right? They are at that stage where it's like, don't tell me that we just had a good conversation. It makes me not want to talk to you.
Right.
Where a little kid is like, oh, did you ask me what my favorite part of the day was? Let me tell you all my favorite parts of the day. And so it is different, I think, for the student realm, and it's a little more complicated, I think,
Yeah, I think it's just a lot less. I think we've had to, I guess, come to this conclusion that it's not going to be perfect, and some of this time may seem really, really wasted. And then being maybe even a little bit okay with that, I guess, in some sense. So it's a little frustrating. I guess it kind of gets into the next thing of how we're doing. But, I think it can lead to I know for us, we had fallen into a good routine of like what's going on and establishing some sort of boundaries, even as the kids are getting a little bit older, and some of that's a little bit out of our hands, and really being in a good place. And then this happens, and then all of a sudden everyone's, wanting to be up until 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. and I still need to work, so I need to go to bed, but we don't want to be just up all of the time. And I think a lot of families might be facing some of those issues, especially as kids now are at teenagers' point. They're moving their connections to different places, whether it's other friends or other places, doing other things, kind of moving away, even though the the relationship between the parent has to be very, very strong, but they're looking toward their friendships for so much at this point. And to say, okay, now it's home with mommy and daddy. Isn't this going to be fun? But I think the thing that we have learned, I believe overall, is that we kind of just hands off a little bit, but continue to push a little bit. And usually their response has been a good response. We just on the way here, I thought it was interesting. I was driving down from my house to the church and went by this house. There was like a 14-year-old girl and her mom in the driveway playing badminton, right? And I'm thinking, in what world did this ever happen in, ever before the last 3 weeks? And as strange and weird as it might be to try to engage your teenager in these kind of things, I would say take the opportunity and see what happens. And I think sometimes we would be very, very surprised as the response could be positive. So,
Yeah.
so
I did see.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did see one of my cousins. He's working from home now, and they just have one little girl, and his wife is a nurse, so she's gone pretty much all the time. And so he's working from home, and their daughter's like 3. And he said, I know that we're now in this new realm and new world because we now have this different lingo. He said the other day he was sitting there working on his computer and he got all set up to do it. And his 3-year-old daughter looks at him as she's leaving the room and goes, you good, Dad? And he said, yep, just going to be working. And she goes, all right, just let me know if you need me. She left the room. He said, okay, we are in a different world now.
Yeah, this is strange. So it does cause a lot of different emotions, a lot of different experiences for us. But so let's talk about just for a few minutes how we're doing. And then I think one of the, I guess, goals is to help everyone out there understand, whether it's volunteer leaders or parents, that like you're really not alone in feeling some of these things. So Justin, we'll start with you. Like, give us like emotionally how you've been dealing with this.
I did one of the Easter Devos for the church, and I was just mentioned in that it kind of depends on the day, sometimes even like the hour of the day. I think it was hard for me to figure out that new rhythm of work from home, which I'm sure is true for countless others, you know, and it's even like I felt bad in the moment that I was frustrated because my kids were doing what they would normally do any day, but now I was there, you know, and like my kids shouldn't have to worry about playing around in their own home, you know, but because dad's on a Zoom session with the staff, I just need you guys to be quiet for an hour, you know, and it's like, and that's bothering me. And that little bothers throughout the day lead toward, you know, expressions of frustration or anger. And then just reflecting on, man, there's something broken in Justin, in me. That's my kids were being 5 and 7 and 1. And not sinning, not being disobedient, not even being unruly, just being 5 and 7 and 1. And I think I just confessed to Deb, like, I don't want on the other side of this for my kids to think back like, man, Dad was just angry for those, like, remember that 4 weeks? I don't remember what he was here for, but he was here all the time and he just seemed angry the whole time. Like, I don't want my kids to say that. Yeah. And so figuring out, you know, Morgan even talked about this and something, that anger is a secondary emotion. And Elizabeth told me that the other day, and what is underneath. And I think probably subconsciously, what I do was far more part of my identity than I wanted to admit. And so when so much of what I did was stripped away based on the circumstance that we're in, it kind of just bubbled up. And I think we all have taught on this and lived this, the idea that I have a profession where I teach about God, or I think about God a lot. And yet so often I open up the scriptures so I can tell somebody else about the scriptures rather than opening up the scriptures to understand and love and grow in my affection toward God. And that's something that I've had to redirect in this time of truly relying on the Lord, trusting the Lord, and seeking the Lord and desiring God rather than just doing those things as activities for someone else. So depends on the day. I would say I'm doing better today as of April 9th than I was, COVID-19 isolation week 1.
Yeah, I think it does emotionally. What I've realized is a little bit of the same thing. It does reveal where we put when things are stripped away, how painful that becomes. Kind of reveals the amount of emphasis that you did put on those things rather than on, not that they were even bad to begin with,
Sure.
but I think for me, I've struggled a little bit with, anger, and then struggling with the fact that, why am I angry? I feel guilty for being angry. This is just dumb that I'm angry. And,
Yeah.
we have 3 kids. We have a senior this year, and there are a lot of other parents out there that have seniors and children as well. And, you're kind of looking at that moment of like, this is spring break. This all sort of happens. And this is kind of the part of the year you kind of look at. This is kind of the fun part. This is downhill. This is looking toward graduation. And, it's like, oh, wow, I guess all of those things I had in my mind that were going to happen, just they're not going to happen that way. And where does that leave me, right? And in the grand scheme of things is not a big deal, but I think acknowledging even that as being a loss is like, oh man, we're not going to be able to live that we thought that it was going to happen. And even at that point, it's okay. And, but I have caught myself as like, why do we have to do this now? Why couldn't this be another time? I know I've said things to myself like, you know what, God, I have definitely learned my lesson. And if we could just stop this now, I've learned it. I am good. I've learned the lesson.
Thank you, Lord. Let's now move on.
Thank you.
Oh, wait,
Thank
you have
you
another
for
month of
that. And I am good. I don't need any more. And so I've had those thoughts too. But so that's definitely something that I've struggled with. And funny, the more that you're with your own kids, you realize that it might actually be more your problem than it is their problem. So yeah, I definitely struggled with that. And then just a little bit, just the, frustrations if we have to reinvent what it looks like to kind of the good part of what it looks like to be our family right now, the part that we actually had lost or maybe never even knew that was available to us in relationship to each other. But then also just the little frustrations of having to redo times and schedules and seeing those events that come up on your phone that were supposed to happen and they're not happening, and just reliving that is kind of a bummer, So how about you, Morgan?
I feel like it's very similar to what you guys have said. The nice thing is we have people that we do get to talk to every day, right?
Yeah.
In our staff. And so you, Drew, you've said a lot, talked about you can either be frustrated or you can just kind of roll with the punches and learn new things. And by hearing you talk about new things that you're trying and learning in youth ministry, it's allowed me to think through, okay, how can I just let go of some of the needing to control all these aspects and just learn new things. And then I've also thought a lot about, because it's been anger for me too. And it was, Justin, someone in my life group, I was telling them, I was like, I just feel angry and I don't know why. And she's a counselor and she's the one that told me that's a secondary emotion. And there's something else going on. And I was like, well, crap, now I have 2 problems,
Yes.
And so
it doesn't help.
That does not help me. I don't know what it is. And something's wrong with me.
Yes.
What can fix this? Chocolate, And so I've been going on a lot of walks and trying to just be more reflective and aware, to try to catch myself before I let my anger turn into sinning, primarily with my words. And so I've been trying to catch myself. And then I've been thinking, this is going to sound weird, but about my mom and dad. She tells me a time, they're both going to be ministers, youth ministers. And she ended up marrying a youth minister instead, and she's staying at home with me and my brothers. And my dad was going on trips. This is before cell phones, and he would go and have these like huge wins and these emotional highs and spiritual highs. And my mom would just be at home with 3 kids under the age of 3 for a week while he was gone. And he wouldn't talk to her all week because there were no cell phones. So on the way home, she said she remembers a specific time that on the way home from a youth quake, I think is what it was, he calls her from a payphone somewhere in Kansas to let her know that they're on their way home. And in the short time, she said, I was just so short with him. I was angry and I didn't know why. And he was telling me these awesome things that had happened. And I was like, cool, great, awesome. And she said, then I got off the phone. She said, I got off the phone and I realized like, that doesn't make him want to come home. Like that doesn't make him excited about like these kingdom things. It's like tearing him in two. And she said, so from then on, I decided I was going to make every time he went away something that was super fun and adventurous for me. And she was talking to me. So me and y'all, and she did. We had different meals because we didn't have to buy meat because my dad wasn't home. So we could have cereal for dinner. We got to sleep on the floor in her room. We got to rent a movie. We got to go get a slushie from Sonic one day. We sometimes got to visit cousins, all these things. And so I've tried to switch my brain into that mode for this time. Like, even if it's 6 months, if it's whatever, this is an adventure and we get to have this special creative time outside making a chalk mural, or we get to have a fun time where we're watching a movie, or and I'm trying just to think through things like that and change my point of view to turn it around, ironically, kind of like my mom did in a whole different situation. So
right.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I think regardless of what, I think we all might be experiencing a lot of different emotions like this. Interesting that was all somewhat anger for us. We'll kind of wrap it up. We just got a couple minutes here, but I would say just based on what we've been talking about, it's going to be super, super important to find a plan, some sort of a new normal plan for your family. Know your temptations when you are alone. Know your temptations when you have a lot of time on your hands. And then I think more than anything else, like you referenced to, Morgan, we need to stay in community with one another. And if it's just through these screens for a while, then it's through these screens, but stay connected to other believers, stay connected to your life group, reach out when you may not know or understand what you're feeling. And as Jesus and the Father and the Son are one, that as we're believers, and a lot of the same sense that we experience who God is. That's what John 17 talks about. So this is who we need to reach to in our time of struggle like this, is the body of Christ. So hopefully some of this has been helpful to you. We will try to get another one of these out every week or two. And if you want to follow along or subscribe to them, that would be great. Until then, we will talk to you, hopefully see you face to face very, very soon.